fired up.
The snap, the put down, the swing of the leg. It is on its way. It is good! Cincinnati wins the American Championship.
Here comes the quarterback, Burrow, looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown! What a skip!
As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run. And so that'll make it a 4-0 ball game.
Welcome back. I said, welcome back. It's the first time that's happened twice.
He's learning.
It's smoother this time.
It is smoother, but we're just going to wait until the very end then, going forward?
Or you could not have gone prematurely.
Could have communicated that in our...
Moving forward.
Could have communicated that in our pregame. Anyway, I'm your host, Aaron Smith, and joined by the self-proclaimed best producer in the city, Ed Mayhall. Not sure that we're going to live that nickname down. I think that's way better than just best producer. I like self-proclaimed.
Nope, we're sticking with best.
Also joined by Jeff Howell. Gentlemen, this weekend sucked. But this is why you are self-proclaimed. Weekend sucked. Crosstown Shootout. I'm really happy this is the last podcast I'm going to have to discuss the Crosstown Shootout because, my God, it was a travesty.
Wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
Yep.
Let's see. Very good. We have a special guest tonight who should be joining us momentarily. And as if right on cue, we have Greg Pierce, Alec Pierce's father, joining us. Alec playing wide receiver number 12 in your bulletins, number 1 in your hearts. I hope this loads here.
Oh, no. Could be a bad connection.
Yeah. So we'll see if we can get that going. When you go live, sometimes you run into these types of things.
It happens every now and then.
All good. In any case,
We talk about the Crosstown Shootout for a couple
Crosstown
minutes.
Shootout.
I mean, it's not like there's going to be like a whole lot.
yeah, that we haven't covered last night and all that.
Or as I labeled it,
I don't know.
the Crosstown No Showdown.
I don't know if there's really a whole lot that needs to be talked about or discussed, or that anybody really wants to hear after what happened there. I think Wes Miller kind of covered it in his post game thing when he said that they got their tails whipped.
Yeah, it was ugly.
It wasn't good. And I wasn't expecting a win, but I wasn't expecting to get blown out that badly.
Well, I mean, the line was 6.5, and I thought that was generous. I mean, Aaron said 15 last week.
I did.
And my internal heart fandom
Couldn't do it.
Wanted a Bearcats victory, pulled out, just salt to the earth, getting it done.
Well, I think we've all been kind of tainted with that those 2 early wins in the tournament this year. I think beating ranked teams, we're like, okay, well maybe we could just turn on the burners like we did against those teams and pull out a win. Especially in Wes Miller's first year, I think we all thought maybe, hopefully, because in the past, with our coaches, we've never really hoped for anything like that. So, I think we all kind of got our hopes up, but there's always that one guy for Xavier who is going to just be lights out. And, last week we predicted it'd be Zach Freemantle since he was coming back from injury, but this year it was Jack Nungy with 31 points.
Yeah, Nungy, he destroyed us, and we'll get back to a little bit more on the Crosstown Shootout. But we are joined by a relatively new friend to me, as I got to meet him on the sidelines during the senior when all the families were lined up for senior night. Greg Pierce, Alec Pierce's father, as I said earlier, is with us tonight. Greg, you saw me and you motioned me over, and you're like, just want to tell you, I've been reading your stuff on Bearcat Journal. You guys do a great job. And that was a cool moment for me that a parent of a player took the time to A, know who the hell I even was, and B, bring me over just to thank me for the work that we do. So how long have you been a member of Bearcat Journal? Let's start there.
Well, it's great to be with you, Aaron and Jeff and Ed. Great to connect, man. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir. You're coming in great.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming on 4 years this December when Alec committed. I think tomorrow is like National Signing Day, so it was like 4 years ago that the 2018 class got announced. And I was coming off my older son was playing basketball at North Carolina and was just kind of like, was really amazed at the amount of content there. And then really started to see that Cincinnati, especially with like Chad and all the quality work Bearcat Journal was doing, I just really it's such a great job of connecting with the community. So I think I probably started to subscribe, probably Alec's freshman year, right when he's coming in, and I met Chad at the Military Bowl, and great guy, and yeah, no, I mean, you guys just do great work, and it adds to the experience, which is fantastic. So, it's funny, when you guys, I think Chad texted me and said, would I be interested in doing this? I checked with 3 people. I checked with my wife, who I've been married 30 years, and she said, why you? And then I checked with Chad, and I said, hey, would anybody in like the football department have like any issue with that? And he goes, no, not unless you're going to talk like Alabama smack, which I'm not. And then I asked Alec, and he said, as long as you don't say anything dumb, those were his words. And I said, I can't promise that, because what might be dumb to him may not be dumb to me. So, we'll see. We'll see.
I stopped Alec at practice this morning, and I told him, hey, I'm the guy who's doing the podcast with your dad tonight. Did want to, introduce myself. I've seen you at practice and all that, but I never had taken the time to actually step out and talk to him. He was usually busy and what have you. But he was just like, yeah. And it just echoed exactly what you just said. I told him not to say anything dumb. I said, well, I talked to my dad, Chad, and he told me not to ask him anything Bama related. So I think that's the only thing that we really have to worry about here. Now you talk about your wife, and you two met at Northwestern, where you were playing football and she was playing volleyball. And Chad's told me repeatedly that she was better at her sport than you were better at your sport. So take me through what it was like being 2 Division I athletes meeting at Northwestern and kind of figuring out life together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a kid from Milwaukee. It's one of the reasons I really love Cincinnati. Real similar kind of communities. And so, went down to Northwestern as a quarterback, but it in the program, it said quarterback / athlete, which was another way of saying you might want to get ready to not play quarterback. So, I learned right away kind of the having to try and be as versatile as possible. And yeah, we have five letters in our family. My wife had 4 of them and I had 1. I got hurt my sophomore year at Michigan. I played special teams my redshirt freshman year after being a quarterback, and way to get on the field, like a lot of guys know. And then my redshirt sophomore year, my 3rd year, I was rotating with the 1s, and then just had knee surgery, 3 ligaments in the Michigan game, and just never really came back from that. So I've got a deep appreciation, I think, for, within, I guess it was in 1 month, I went from being the I went from being a backup to a starter to an injured. And I think in many respects, being a starter, and I actually talk every once in a while to high school teams on kind of that little theme. In a lot of respects, the starter's kind of the easiest role, at least from my standpoint. I think the injured's the hardest. You're just always trying to find your place.
Sure.
The teams always welcome injured players, but it's just so hard to feel connected. And so I really have deep sympathy and empathy for, the fallen, because it's hard. It was about the hardest of those three roles was being injured and then subsequently, done playing. So, but more to the athlete in our family. Yeah. Stephanie was a middle blocker and she could jump. So that's where Alec gets his hops from. I guess as the story goes, she could dunk a tennis ball in college at 5'11". I never saw that, but I know she can jump well. So we started dating our senior year and got married pretty early. So we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary this summer.
Congratulations on 3 decades. That's an impressive feat.
We keep talking about this. Your subscriber base is gonna go down. So
it actually went up.
So, you have 3 kids, and the eldest went to North Carolina. I'm not sure. I was doing some reading. I'm not sure what his major was, but then you also have Alec, who is an engineering major, mechanical, I believe, and you have your youngest, Caden, who is at Princeton. All of them athletes for Division I schools. I mean, you have to be the proudest parents, both genetically and just scholastically and athletically, just across the country. Maybe LeVar Ball.
I don't really even know what to say about that. I mean, my youngest, who's going to Princeton, he's a senior in high school still, so he committed, and he'll be going next year to play basketball there. And I'm super stoked. I'm stoked to kind of like learn like Ivy basketball. It's like this rich, deep history of basketball, and they have a ton of good teams, and it's an 8-team league, so 1 out of 8 go to the tournament. They win a lot of tournament games typically. They've got high major players in there. So I'm super stoked to and that's the part of the country I'm not as familiar with, the New Jersey area. So I'm super stoked to, learn that. My oldest son, Justin, is a second-year pro overseas. He started his career in Finland in their top league a year ago, and really landed there because of COVID. A lot of the more concentrated leagues like Spain and France were on pause. So his agent told him, you're super young. You just should go to a league that's going to play. So he went there. He loved it. My wife got to visit. I did not. And then this past year, he switched over to Germany, their Pro A league. And that's just a beautiful part of the country. He's in like the Stuttgart area. And just this week, because they're having some more shutdowns, he got traded. I guess they don't really trade, but he got bought out of his contract and headed back to Finland to another team because they'll keep playing. So it's hard to keep track of him. I will say he's coming home though. He negotiated to come home for the college football playoffs. So
nice.
We're super excited for that, because one of the tricky things about having the good fortune of having, your kids playing college athletics is you never see them. And so when they came home, during the COVID shutdown, which, the Bearcats were four practices into their spring ball. And then North Carolina, it was my son's senior year. He had grad transferred from William & Mary. So did kind of the mid-major to the grad transfer, and then got his MBA at North Carolina, played for Roy. Was a 6th man, averaged about 20 minutes a game, and started a few games, had a great role. But they were in the middle of their ACC tournament, and that came to a halt. And then all of a sudden everybody's home. And so for them, it wasn't great to be home, I don't think. But for us as parents, we'll probably always remember those. It was about 90 days, because if you guys remember, then college football, there was that resolve that college football was going to happen. And so they sent they sent the players back in June and did all the testing and all that stuff.
Okay.
And really, like, the college football players were some of the first to go back into all those protocols in like June. So we had Alec from whatever March to June, 90 days, and then we had my oldest son for a little bit longer until he went to Finland, and then our youngest son, Cade, and he got to, my oldest son was a pro, and then Alex I always feel is kind of trained like a pro. So I looked at my wife and I said, I think this is going to be good for our youngest son, Cade, who's 4 years younger than Alec, just to like watch them grind and, us put together like a makeshift little dojo in our basement of like some free weights, just so, and Cincinnati sent the stretching bands and all that stuff. And just I think it really benefited my youngest son to watch the older guys go through, what they do. And so that was probably a blessing for us.
And then you get to see your grocery bill skyrocket with two D1 athletes coming home and an aspiring D1 athlete.
I'm in my attic, and so I do this little commute down for dinner at night, and I Justin be at the dinner table, Alec be at the dinner table, and I'd be like, "Where's Cade, my youngest?" And they're like, "Well, he's in charge of making sure the weight room's clean every night," which is like music to my ears. It's like, it's a classic younger brother thing. And so he'd always come late for dinner after making sure that the little makeshift weight room was to their standards.
You said something about, the younger brothers watching the older brothers. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and Jeff, you could probably attest to that. Like, I watched my youngest son watch my oldest son play soccer, and then when he goes out the field, he just tries to imitate his brother.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gave him I'm going to say a leg up, but, kind of made him used to the game before he was ready.
For sure. Yeah. I think birth order, the oldest, I'm the oldest, so I can kind of say this, they tend to be a little more cautious. And then, then the next one's pretty much looks at the other one and said, I'm not going to go that path. So I'm going to go probably a little bit crazier path. And so, yeah, we have, I guess it would be like, basketball, football, basketball. So what would that? There'd be a football sandwich we have in our family.
So, I mean, you mentioned being injured. Is that, we all know that Alec went through his injury last year. And is that something that you guys related to on a deeper level than maybe you had anticipated?
That's a great question, Aaron. People ask me, because all my discretionary time is in athletics or supporting athletics. And so people ask me, do I get nervous for wins and losses? And I don't. I just really get hopeful that people don't get hurt, hurt, even random hurts, they're practicing right now. Right. It's just like, just get us to the game type of thing. And so I remember when Alec texted us, and you guys remember their camp was extra long, because just they had that unique situation of being in Higher Ground created like its own little kind of quarantine. So they
have you been there?
Early, so it was a super long camp. They
Greg,
break camp. They're playing like Austin P in the first week, and Alec texts us on like the Wednesdays. Like, I tweaked my knee a little bit, so it wasn't horrific. They just kind of did a little maintenance on him, and then they said, we're going to cautiously keep you out of these non-conference, and then you'll be ready for SMU. He came back for SMU. And then like the first quarter of Memphis, things were going really well. And then, went in the second quarter, went up for a ball and separated his shoulder, which I'm told is like, when you separate your shoulder, it just means you tear your labrum. And so, you guys remember him he was out for a couple more games, and he had a harness. And then he said, I'm not wearing the harness, and I just kept thinking like, so he, so anyway, he had a little bit of maintenance there, and then, but yeah, you never like to have injuries. It's just like, I kind of started in the beginning. It's never fun.
You mentioned Higher Ground. Have you had a chance to get out there?
Yeah. The last 2 years we haven't been able to do it, which has been, the Bearcat families are just such great families. And probably the only bummer I mean, think about this run that we're on. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Like, just everyone, like, the more the merrier. Like, I have people coming to the Cotton Bowl that I don't even know. It's like, Kevin Bacon may show up. It's an extension of an extension, but people just feel connected. And I know you guys feel the same way, which is like, come on in type of thing. And I feel the same way with, my group of friends and then their friends even. But, the Bearcat community has been such a kind community, and getting momentum, meeting families, freshman year at Higher Ground, and then at the tailgates, and then sophomore year at Higher Ground, and get momentum. And then all of a sudden it came to a screeching halt. The next year the families could show up, but we really, tailgating just another way to like get to know and meet people. You really couldn't do any of that. We couldn't do Higher Ground junior year in this past year. And so I feel like the tailgates this year were a lot like we're rekindling, but for us, it's coming to an end, which is a little bit bittersweet, because you had that kind of community pause in there for a while. I mean, the team was putting out a great product, but it was without fans and all that stuff. And so all the things that we love about college football, which is just a way to kind of gather and see friends, that for whatever 18 months was kind of on pause. And so I feel a lot of people feel a little shortchanged on just like, okay, for us, it's been 4 years, but it's really been about 2.5 years of like getting to know the Bearcat family.
Now, as you know, once a Bearcat, always a Bearcat, right? You're always welcome back. So,
and I'm actually going to miss that 315-mile drive.
It's never over. You were always welcome back. Just let us know. And I mean, I'm sure Dave Simone at his tailgate, he's got Jello shots waiting for you. I mean, he's ready for it.
Yeah, I listen to their podcast when I can, and I've never had the pleasure to meet Dave, but he always makes me laugh on that show. And he just, he just, you never know what he's going to say. It's always witty and it's always funny, but it's also just right off the top of his head. And it's always so funny, especially when he does the, Dave After Dark, after big wins are always classic.
Good luck with those. But
those are always a good time. So you mentioned that it's a 315-mile drive to get down here. What's the drive like from where you're at to New Jersey?
Yeah, that's a plane ride. But the good news, Jeff, is you can do it either Philadelphia or New York, and then it's just like a little subway shot after that. I think if we were to drive it, which we'll do next summer when we move them in, I think I think it's about a 12-hour drive. And we had done that North Carolina, and then William and Mary was in Williamsburg, Virginia, about 13 hours. So we've done that before, but yeah, 4.5-hour drive to Cincinnati. If it's a 3:30 game, we could leave in the morning. It just gave us a lot of flexibility, especially still having a high schooler. He would have commitments Friday night, and then we could leave Saturday. Yeah, I'm going to miss that. I mean, I'm not going to really miss 65, I-65, but yeah, and then rolling into off 74, like just the pretty country as you start to get closer to the Ohio River and just like it gets lower. It's super, super pretty around when you cross the border.
So before Alec committed down here, was Cincinnati really very high on the radar? Was it something he was looking at? Is it somewhere that you guys have been before?
Well, I knew they were good. I remember them, I remember in the Big East when they were playing in the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl. I remember that. And that's a great question, Jeff. It says in the media guide that he had a lot of these different offers, and I'm not, big offers. I'm not sure how that kind of landed on that, because really, when Cincinnati offered, and they offered late, Ben Bryant was in his conference, and it was during the season of his senior year. So, be the equivalent of like a month or so ago. So, guys were already committed in the class of 2018, a ton. And I think there was only a few spots left, I guess. And Coach Denbrock was the guy recruiting him. He was recruiting Chicago. I guess they were looking for a big receiver or an athlete type person. Alec was a track guy. And we're a football school. We send a ton of kids to Division I. We send kids to Ohio State, to Iowa, to Wisconsin, to Stanford, to Vanderbilt. So we are usually top 10 ranked as a large school. So people come through the program, but we run like a wing T. So Alec was 2-time All-State as like a wide receiver, but if you were to look at his high school film, he put his hand on the ground like a backside tight end, like a wing T. So, people didn't know what to make of him. They didn't know if they were going to put 30 pounds on him and make him a tight end. They didn't know, if he was going to be a wide receiver. And of course, when they offered him, I knew that was a really good offer. And I immediately looked up to see if they had engineering, and they did. And I remember telling my wife, because Boston College really wanted him, but they didn't have engineering. And this is an interesting story. I remember telling Alec, how serious are you about doing mechanical engineering? He goes, I really want to do it. And I'm like, well, because my wife and I both started out in engineering at Northwestern, and we didn't get out of there. Like, we were 0 for 2. We got different degrees, and we turned out okay. So I didn't want him to pass up on a school if all of a sudden he decided to switch majors. But he's a pretty driven kid. So he's like, I want to do mechanical engineering. It's like, okay. So I remember I vividly remember, Jeff, looking up Cincinnati, if they had engineering, and they did. And it was also reputable. And I'm like, I think this is could be a really good fit. And then it just moved fast because they had, a couple of spots. And I think they really wanted to close with Alec and prioritize. So got to meet Fickle a couple times. He came to our house, and Joker Phillips was wide receiver coach. He came to the house, and then Alec only took one official visit. He had other ones lined up, but he took the official visit. Funny story. They wanted Alec to visit on I think it was like the 9th and the 10th, that weekend of 2017, because all of his potential future teammates were doing their officials. So all the guys that had committed were doing their officials that weekend. And they were really encouraging that, because they said, hey, you should meet your potential future teammates, which we agreed with. The only problem was my basketball son was playing actually coincidentally at Ohio State on that Saturday. And so Alec flew out on the official visit to Cincinnati that Friday night by himself. My wife and I drove to Columbus. Fortunately, the game was at noon. And then we drove to Cincinnati that night and did the second half of the 2-day official. And on Monday night, even though we had other visits lined up, on Monday night, Alec was like, yeah, I think I want to go to Cincinnati. And that was it. That's kind of how Alec is. If he sees something, he just kind of doesn't overthink it. He just wants to make it happen.
Well, congrats on the first mechanical engineering degree.
I know, we're 1 for 3. We're 1 for 3 in our family.
It's official now, right?
Yeah.
It's official. So congrats on that.
Last Friday. Yeah, that's right. My wife drove down there. I stayed back because my youngest son had a hoops game. So we kind of divided and conquered on that. But yeah, it was great to see all the other athletes and football players get their degrees as well.
So you've been involved now in this community over the course of the last 4 years, and the last 2 years have been undefeated seasons, both in regular season anyway. Of course, there was the Georgia Bowl loss, but what's that ride been like for you as a parent to watch a kid of yours have this level of success on a team that he chose to be on, and larger part this season be a huge reason for that success?
Well, it's a great question, Aaron. I think, first of all, Coach Fickle always talks about with team success comes individual success. And that's not just a saying. I believe that, football is by far the greatest team sport. It needs all 11 players on the field, and then all 3 units, special teams, offense and defense, to have elite moments. And if you think about it, if I think about what I just said right there, I immediately go to what we're doing on special teams with blocking kicks. It's like, it's just ridiculous, how they step up and make things happen. And, I think that there's so many good players on both sides of the ball. And I think they use the phrase iron sharpens iron, but I do think that you are seeing a benefit to the talent on both sides of the ball making each other better. I know Alec is grateful to go up against Sauce Gardner every single day, and they go every single day.
Yes, they do.
Because, for a couple of reasons. One, it just makes him better, and hopefully Ahmad feels the same. And then the second thing is, when scouts come in, it's not a discounted comp. Like, you're talking about the best cover corner in college football. And so any time Alec has some success there, it's not discounted because somebody's looking and saying, oh, that's not a good cover corner. That's the best in the business. And so how can a parent not be grateful for that? How can a parent not be grateful for not having disruption with your head coach, staying with you for 4 years? I got recruited by Dennis Green, who you guys probably know, who's Northwestern coach, and they went to the 49ers, and he went to Stanford. My brother played for him at Stanford, actually. And then he went in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings and Arizona Cardinals. I never played. He offered me a scholarship. I never played for him. And that's a big deal. And my oldest son, when he was at William & Mary, his coach got let go. So he had turnover there. So to have your head coach, for all the reasons, but as a player, to have your head coach, a person who recruited you, who wanted you, stay, is amazing. To have a high profile quarterback is amazing. I do think that's helped Alec, and maybe Alec has helped Dez, but like, I think that's, how can one not be, grateful for, for all those situations. And then just the team, it's like they forgot how to lose. And, it's just amazing. I think about like the Military Bowl. I think that, winning at UCLA, and it was funny, a week before UCLA, Alec was a freshman. We didn't have our tickets booked, and he called us and said, I'm playing special teams. And we're like, holy crap, we better book our flights, because we weren't planning on going. We didn't know if he was going to travel. And then he played, I think he was actually a special teams player of the week there, which is kind of funny. But if you guys remember the beginning of that game, we were down 10-0. Like, our defensive end got targeting and tossed from the game. And I just remember saying to myself, we might be a year away. And then all of a sudden, in trots number 9, Dez, and, 4 years later, what are we, like 44-6 or something like that? I mean, UCLA was a really big moment. I thought Virginia Tech was a huge moment. That's a huge brand. I remember looking up Virginia Tech, and it said like they had like the longest bowl streak and the longest winning streak. They had like 30 years of having a winning record. Could be 7-5. So they're just like this huge brand program. And for us to win that game, and Des got hurt in that game even, but for us to win that game, I thought was huge, gave us confidence, to run it back and kind of take care of business against UCLA. Yeah, obviously Ohio State was probably weird on a lot of levels for coach going back, all that stuff. And it probably was good just to show that we still had work to do to get bigger, faster, stronger, get more depth. And then, just everything was progressional. Like, we got to the conference championship, but we had to play on the road, right? So we can relate to like Houston and Tulsa having to play on the road is a big deal.
Right.
We had to go to Memphis and run it back, and we lost. And then the year of where there wasn't a lot of fans against Tulsa, we won, which was just the next level of progression. We got to that New Year's Six bowl game. And I think it was meant to be, to kind of just like, we didn't win, but we won. I mean, if you think about like, what are we, like 20-1, we're now 22-1 or something the last 2 years. And what does everyone talk about as we head into Alabama, which is like the fact that we went toe to toe with Georgia, which is the one loss. And so I think that, and then this year, it's not easy to win. And so I thought Coach did a great job of just like leaning into the joy of winning and saying, I'm not going to let, people nitpick us versus not nitpicking, the other programs, and not just enjoy winning each game, because it's
Absolutely.
hard. And you could see the different tactics that team would use, whether it's sitting on the ball or always going for it on fourth down, or, all those things. We're always getting the other team's best strategy, best punch, best everything. And I mean, to be 13-0 is just really remarkable.
If there's one moment thus far from the time that he started at UC till now that kind of stands out to you as like, I don't know, maybe your favorite moment, or one where you were elated the most, what would you think that would be?
I have two that come to mind. One is a team one, and then the other one is an individual one. The team one, I mean, a week ago Saturday, I mean, I know the UCF at night, and like, there's a boatload of cool moments, but the utopia on the field, and just like the energy and just like the love, hands down. I brought folks to the games over the years, and people who have played at Michigan, people who have played at Northwestern, people who have played in front of, I played in front of 100,000 people a bunch of different times. And and I keep telling them, like, this environment's as good as anything. And they all say that. Like my buddy who was the Rose Bowl captain and played against USC after I had been done playing, he said that's a top 3, maybe even 1. They had beaten Notre Dame his senior year. That he'll always remember that. But he said that this environment that I just experienced here is as good as any I've experienced. So that, Jeff, that's the team one. And then the individual one is kind of an odd one, but I really think it galvanized Alec's confidence as in the trade of a wide receiver. So at Ohio State, he had like 100 yards or something like that. And at the bus ride, you see him in the bus afterwards and stuff like that. And he's not a guy to like lean into individual stats or anything, but I do remember him saying, "Hey Dad, the number 1 that I win against is going to be picked in the top 3 picks. I think it's Akuda. And then number 3, Arnett, is going to be a top 15 pick." And that's all he said. He didn't say, "And I got 100 yards." That's all he said. And I know what he meant, which is, I can do this. And I think that was huge for him. He might not have lacked confidence, but to then actually go against, and he does have his best games in the biggest games, partly because he's needed more, or maybe you don't need him as much in the other ones. But whether it's Tulsa last year, or whether it's this year Notre Dame or Indiana, I mean, he certainly Ohio State, he has his biggest games in the bigger games, which is, maybe that is a byproduct of the the Ohio State game, which is that was only his second game as a wide receiver, in the rotation, I should say, as a starting wide receiver. So, Jeff, maybe he drew confidence from that. I've never really asked him that, but I know that was, for me, I could tell he knew he could do this trade and that position after that.
So Alex going to the Senior Bowl, and he is projected as an NFL draft pick, although we'll see where the cards fall in regards to that. But how wild is it that we're looking back at his injury and wondering if he's even going to get back on the field last year at all. And now all of a sudden, after just running off win after win after win after win, we're now talking about Alec being an NFL draft pick. Like, what's that been like for you and your family to realize, like, not only can he do it, but he's going to do it on the biggest of stages?
I mean, he's super healthy right now, and that's all. And I knew if he was going to stay healthy, I knew I know he's going to test well. It's interesting. You can tell they really do their research, and they don't take any metrics from college teams because those aren't verified, but they can verify that he triple jumped 46 feet in high school. They talk about that. It's like, wow, they can verify that because he did that at state, or they can verify that he was on the he's at the high school, our high schools. He's on the 4x1 and 4x2 relay teams that set school records in place, fifth in state and stuff like that. So they've done their research on that. And he's a guy that, he verticals 40 plus. I think, he's been clocked under, in the 4.4s. And with a little bit of training, who knows what he's going to do. He's going to be right at the top in all those metrics, in my opinion. And which is only going to have him surprise more people. I think. So the Senior Bowl we're really grateful for, because I think that was a goal of his. He didn't come right out and say it, but I could tell that that's a nice opportunity. And it's great to see, 6 or however many we have. It's just a sign of, it's kind of like 2 times as much as we had the year before. I think it's just a sign of how people are thinking about Cincinnati. And yeah, it's just going to be another opportunity, just like the Alabama game is. I mean, those are opportunities for the biggest stages for all the players. And, it's exciting. I mean, you can, as a competitor, you can't ask for anything else. And, Alec walks toward that, not away from it. Okay. And so I'm excited for him because he has confidence in all that. He knows he goes against the best cover corner every single day. So who's going to be better than Ahmad at the Senior Bowl? They're going to be great, but he already runs that every time. And so, I know he draws confidence from that.
Now, go ahead, Jeff, if you got something.
No, I was just going to bring up, with him going against Ahmad, I know that Aaron was at higher ground this year, and I know he said that there was some a questionable touchdown catch against Ahmad in the while they were going back and forth out there, that got into a little bit of a back and forth of that was a touchdown, no it wasn't, kind of thing, which is that's always fun to hear. We talked about that earlier this year,
months ago.
Someone just has to tell Ahmad that it doesn't go against his PFF stats.
So what do you have, like, a good story that you can share with us that he's shared about, like, just going against Sauce on a day-to-day, or anything like maybe deeper than just like, it's tough, or, just something, I don't know, that you really like stands out as like, that was funny? Or, because I know they talk, and I'm sure, like, I mean, they're always chirping at each other. Even this morning they were chirping at each other. And
yeah, it's funny. I mean, like, even like Alex, one of our more quiet guys at our house. So it's, we always laugh, like I didn't know the backstory. This is not really on Ahmad's story. This is more of the Tulsa. I didn't know the backstory on first of all, shows my generation. I didn't know what the phrase, they don't want our smoke or whatever. I didn't know what that, I didn't know that phrase. Right. So, and I'm not even trying to be funny. That's the truth. And I didn't know that. And I also didn't know that phrase went down from a cornerback at Tulsa when we had the COVID pause. So we didn't go to Tulsa, and the kind of the Twitter wars were starting. So I had no clue about like the buildup. And then in the conference championship game, Alec had some good opportunities and he was off to a good start. And I think it was like one of his fourth or fifth catches. He caught a touchdown and he went running and got right in the face of the cornerback. And I'm like that's come to become Alec a little bit, I think. And maybe Ahmad's helped him with that because I wouldn't grade him out as a elite trash talker, Alec, but maybe college has matured him a little bit. But to see that, and my high school coach was texting me and saying like, my son's saying, Alex talking smack because the guy said he didn't want the smoke and all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff means, but I thought that was kind of interesting because, I mean, he's a competitor, no doubt about it, but he usually doesn't need to talk to do it, and he was tussling with the Houston cornerback, who's an amazing cornerback, Jones, and he kind of blocked him off the field last game, and then Jones kind of flipped him, and they were talking stuff. I mean, it's more for Alec to just walk away from those types of things because I think he prides himself on not on being mentally strong, and like talking is a sign of sometimes the opposite of that. But I think Ahmad's a pro. You talk about a guy who showed up as a freshman with a nickname. I know Coach Fickle made him earn that nickname, and he did very quickly with 2 pick sixes. And it's funny because, if you guys remember, Alec and Ahmad had the same number, 12.
Yep.
And I would run into people in our neighborhood. I remember after UCF game, I was like walking the dog, and somebody came up to me and said, "Man, Alec had an unreal game at that night game at home against UCF." I think you guys know where I'm going with this. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, he caught a touchdown, but okay, I'll let him go. And they're like, he's like, good grief. Like, he caught a touchdown. And then on the onside kick, he was out there and he batted it out of bounds. And then he had a pick six. And I'm like, wait, he didn't have a pick six. That's another teammate. But it's at night, and like they're wearing long sleeve shirts probably and all that stuff. And it's like, it's just funny. And, they're both lanky. I mean, Ahmad's even lankier and even leaner, but they're, you can see if you're not really paying that much attention. And I'm like, oh my God, this person thought like Alec was like making all these like offense and just like it was like Pop Warner football or something.
Playing on all 3 sides of the ball.
That's fantastic.
It's awesome.
So I want to get to tailgate questions, but do you guys have anything else on Alec on the field before we move into tailgate questions?
Tailgate it up.
So I know you like to party, Greg.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I'm actually kind of a lightweight on all that stuff, but I mean, I like people.
So what I'm getting at is, who are you going to miss tailgating with from the other people that you've had the opportunity to be at, with all the parents? Because you guys have your own tent as families of the players. So who are we going to miss? Like, who have you gotten closest with, and what's it going to be like?
I mean, there's a ton of families. I mean, I'm so grateful for the Hubers. They run, they run the kind of player tailgate and are just such a glue to just all things that get kind of organized. So certainly think about them right away. And then we got adopted by another adjacent tailgate, Lucy Gate, with the Woodsides and the Van Fossens and us and O'Quinn. They were looking for, I think as the story goes, and I could be wrong, I think Mr. Woodside, Colin's dad, went to school in Cincinnati with the folks at Lucy Gate who tailgate, and they knew them, and they kind of quote unquote adopted a few of the parents. The players never really interact with them, but they adopted the parents, and then subsequently root for the players. And so the Lucy Gate tailgaters have just been super kind. And even for the Cotton Bowl, they texted me and said they got a spot. And then they said, I said, they go, how many are you bringing to the Cotton Bowl? I go, a lot. And they didn't even ask how many. it's kind of like when Prince did the halftime show for the Super Bowl, and they said, "Hey, we got some bad news, Prince. It's going to be pouring rain," and he said, "Can you make it rain harder?" And so, yeah, they're amazing people and just like connected community. So I'm certainly going to miss, the player tailgate as well as the Lucy Gate, and just even the ability to walk from whether it's the Fairfield or the Graduate. I mean, I know you guys know this, but normally when you go to a big time college environment like Cincinnati is, normally you're parking somewhere, you're walking somewhere, you're thinking about who's going to be the responsible person and then drive out of the traffic jam. And here you park, you get to your hotel. We kind of pivoted from the Fairfield, which has been amazing, to the Graduate, because then we can even see some of the players and say hi, and that a lot of times it's open now on that Saturday. And then you just walk to the tailgate. You walk to the stadium. I used to hang out at Keystone, and then my good man Chad is kind enough to get me in touch with Mio's, and so now we walk to Mio's. I'm gonna miss Rich and Kelly, and then you walk back to your hotel. I mean, what's better than that?
It's awesome.
Hi, buddy.
How are you, Chad? I've noticed you're going hatless a lot.
It's because of the lighting. So if I put the hat on,
it's his. Don't let him lie. It's his giant dome, and then when you have the headphones and the hat and he's got a large head.
Hey, the only way you can have a big brain is if you have a big head.
It's true.
I finally get to take digs at Chad though, because this is my podcast, not his.
Well, Chad and I would see each other all the time at AAU, which, I always forget that. And he would remind me that like he really came up through the basketball and then subsequently added on the football. I just never really thought through that until I was getting to know him in Louisville on the Under Armour circuit, and then, Fort Wayne, and then obviously Indiana. And then the funny connection that our family has with Wes Miller. I'm still giddy that he came to Cincinnati when that announcement happened. I still remember that. It's just like, because my oldest son played with Wes's brother Walker.
We don't talk about Walker Wes here anymore.
At North Carolina, when he was coaching at Greenville. I'm like, and now going to the Big 12, which is arguably the most powerful basketball conference, probably is. I mean, it's just like, is this a dream?
So can I tell my favorite Pierce story?
Please.
Sure.
So his oldest goes into the portal. Justin goes into the portal from William and Mary. And Cincinnati's like, the coaches call me and they're like, he's got a brother on the football team, right? Like, you think you can get us involved? And I was like, yeah, like I'm tight with Greg. I can give him a call. So I called Greg and I'm like, the staff wants to touch base and see what's up. And Greg was like, he was very nice about it. We hadn't become as close as we are now at that point. And he kind of was like, yeah, the tone was, I don't think Justin and Mick would be a great match. So I had to go back to the staff and be like, yeah, I know him. Yeah, his brother plays here. Yeah, we're pretty close, but probably not. You didn't know at that point in time it was going to go to North Carolina levels. Like, he had just entered the portal.
I did know that Alec was a better defender than Justin, so that wasn't going to work for Mick.
Yeah. So he scouting reported his own son. Like, Cincinnati's great for Alex, but for Justin, probably not. Probably not.
I mean, deflections.
Justin's not a big deflection guy, is he?
He likes to outscore his opponent. That's his thing.
Well, we could use that.
Yeah.
All right. So last question before we let Chad take over. Any other additional questions or anything like that with you, and then we get you out of here. Do you have since you got to tailgate this year, do you have a favorite tailgate story from this season? considering we were all finally back together and you feel like you got gypped. You only got 2.5 years of tailgating as opposed to the full 4 years. So do you have a favorite tailgate story from this season as you're riding the wave of everything that's happened for both Alec and UC, and you're all celebrating, and maybe the drinks get a little looser than what they would if there were some L's?
So this year I been married 30 years, and one day I just said, didn't even ask my wife. I'm like, I'm going to be a season ticket holder. So I got 4 extra tickets. I just didn't want a deal. I wanted Alec to be able to give his tickets to his friends, and I didn't want to deal with, like, I wanted to know where I was going to be sitting. And so 12th row, 35-yard line on the offensive side. And we got to know, like, all the people around there. There's a professor in the music department that sits by us. There's a Vietnam vet that sits by us. And it's ironically row 12. That was the highest we could get up. Everything above us is season ticket holders. So we got row 12.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And, you know, the SMU game was super special for 2 reasons. One is, I had 2 extra tickets and I gave it to Rick, the Vietnam vet, and he was able to bring his sons, and he says his one son is his favorite player. He's a wide receiver in high school, and his favorite player is Alec, and that's cute. So he was able to bring them. But I also brought my buddies from Madison. I mean, I'm from Milwaukee, but they went to Madison, and those are pros. So they came in. You might have seen them. They were in like the Madison and Indiana wear those candy striped bibs, and they wore because it's red. And I'm like,
right.
Well, Bearcats are red and black. So I said, wear the bibs. So they were the guys wearing the bibs. Everybody knows them. I get texts from the people in the stands saying and they have nicknames. Toro and Lags Toro and Lags coming to the Cotton Bowl. And they made that impression all in a 4-hour time period. So needless to say, that was fun. And then, that's probably, I mean, I came in hot for the Temple game because we had a funeral to attend, and I came solo then. And it was stressing me out because I knew I'd hit Indianapolis traffic. And I just parked and I ran in right at the time of the announcement. So that was probably my favorite stadium beer is to crack that one, or have it be cracked for me by the vendor for the Temple game.
All right. Fair enough. Chad, do you have any questions for Greg before we let him get out of here?
Yeah, I guess, and I've heard most of this as I was driving home. So this is overlapping a little bit, but when you got that first NFL grade on Alec, and it was, I don't know if it was higher than you thought, but it was pretty high. And you don't have to say exactly what it was, but what was that moment like as a parent where all of a sudden you're reading correspondence from the NFL that probably recognizes your son at a higher level than really anybody else, right? Like, was that the first eye opener for you that was like, this is very, very real?
It's a great question, Chad. And it really is. It's still, you always believe in your kids. And I think every parent believes in their kids. And I knew athletically, Alec would stack up well athletically, but I would, whether it's, an injury or whether it's, the position he plays is also, a lot of times people, at least the media will just scroll down like the production board. And so I don't say that with any anger or any issue, because actually Alec gets twice as many targets in college as he did in high school. And so like, it's all relative, but I never thought that. I thought, and he's always been on the road less traveled, and it's a good road. It's a good road to learn how to like grind and have grit and like, have a little bit of a chip, and Cincinnati's on that road. And I feel like that's such a powerful road. So it's a road he was already familiar with. And then I remember he was home in May these guys come home a couple times. It's like 11 and a half month job. And he was home in May. He was on the phone all the time. And I was like, Alec, who are you on the phone with? And he would say agents. And I thought that wasn't, you weren't even allowed to do that. Cause I remember I just finished up with with Justin and the agent stuff. And that was, you end the season and you have 6 months before you're deployed. So you start the process of talking to agents. But if I had stopped to think about the college stuff, whenever you're done, you got assigned to go then start. So there is this overlap. And so I'm like, he said some of the agents that were calling him, and I'm like, what? And then, he kind of put me in charge of talking to them so he could just focus on football. And I was happy to do that for him. And I think he had gotten advice from some of the older players on, have a parent run that while you just worry on football. And so, it's a story of the scouts. It's amazing how detailed they get on things. There's nothing that's not uncovered, good or bad. And so it sometimes doesn't match up with the media view of things. And I'm still a little bit like, I was, if you were listening, Chad, I was saying just my gratitude toward Fickle-Stain, my gratitude toward Alec having a quarterback like Desmond, my gratitude toward going against Ahmad on every single play.
Yeah.
What an environment to succeed or fail, but what an environment, because so often there's an environment where you might be succeeding, but then it's discounted. It's like but that guy, or but that guy. And then it all gets poured onto like the 1 or 2 games. And Chad, this way better than I do, watching the amount or hearing about the amount of NFL scouts that are showing up, and then seeing an environment of a lot of good caliber players. It just, what a terrific environment to be in. And so I was and still am a little bit surprised. And certainly when Mel Kiper starts, for all of our guys, maybe other parents don't feel that about their kids on those things, but I'm like, wow, I'm just, and especially wide receivers, they take a bunch of them. It's not like, you take a bunch of them. So when he lands on that list, it's like, wow, you take a bunch of those guys. And so, what do they call it? It's an opportunity. It's not a job. So, just keep working, be humble, be grateful, because it could end at any moment. And so, the team has put themselves in really good situation. And as Fickle says all the time, with team success comes individual success. And then there's individual, opportunities from that. So it is a little bit of a dream though, Chad, and just like that. And so you just try and enjoy it. You asked the question, so I answered it. I wouldn't have necessarily talked about it, but I answer it as humbly as possible, because it's just like, it's really, I'm really proud of the team.
Well, yeah, it's not like the kids are born and you're like, all right, that one's going pro in basketball. He's going to play in North Carolina. Yeah. This one's going to the NFL. And the third one, he's going to play basketball, but let's send him to the Ivy League. Like, that's not the journey when it starts, but you've had a hell of a journey. And I guess like everybody wants to talk about the football stuff. Alec got an engineering degree in 3.5 years. Like, what? Because everybody says, when you...
Chad, Greg already brought up that mom and dad were 0 for 2 on the engineering degrees.
Yeah, we're 0 for 2.
They tried. It just didn't finish because they went with other degrees.
And Cincinnati has such a good engineering school that when football players say that they're going to major in engineering everybody that has ever majored in engineering in Cincinnati is like, oh no, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to do that here.
Aren't there two of them?
Well, Royer, well, there's three because John Williams is in aerospace.
Oh.
But Royer and Alec, which Royer as a walk-on, that kid's a lunatic. Lunatic. But 3.5 years, Greg, like that's unfathomable. And if you guys already talked about this, you don't have to answer.
No,
That's
that
awesome.
didn't
No,
come
I
up.
think engineering's a team sport, which is why and so is football. So I think it's why a lot of schools, when Alec was getting recruited, some of the Big Ten schools that were talking to him that were good at engineering just were like, that doesn't mix. And so I'm not going to say he was ultimately going to get a scholarship offer or not. It just came to a halt because Alec was dead set on getting that engineering degree. And I was grateful for Joker Phillips his freshman year. He let him scoot off to labs. And that's where I was going with the story is like, it doesn't mix because engineering is like a team sport. You're doing like labs at night with your team. It's so much a team thing for engineering that if you're letting them down by saying, oh yeah, I got football again, you're really not pulling your end of the bargain on the engineering side. And so, I remember Fickle saying to Alec in his office, do you really want to do this engineering thing? And he said, yes. And he goes, well, if you hold up your end of the bargain, I'll have to hold up my end of the bargain. Cause I think it was new for Fickle too. And I told Alec, I think I used the word turd, but if you're bad at football, they're not going to care. And if you're good at football, they're probably going to work with you. And that's, I really believed it was going to be one or the other. And so, that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. Just, I didn't make the graduation, Chad. Stephanie did. My youngest son had games Friday and Saturday, so we had to divide and conquer. But super proud of the kid.
Well, unless Chad has anything else, Greg,
I guess the last thing would be: did you take some time doing AAU this summer to this is the last one, like to enjoy it a little bit? Those car rides, and we talked on a couple of those car rides, and Cade's in the back seat going, Dad, are you talking to Chad again? Did you get some time to enjoy that?
Yeah. So for the other guys, my son played on the Illinois Wolves, and they're like one of the original Under Armour teams, and had guys like Keita Diop and Frank Kaminsky and Evan Turner. So it's a real established program. So he was on that team with some high profile teammates. A kid who's on his high school team is 6'11", going to Gonzaga, another guy going to Duke, and they ended up winning the Under Armour circuit, which I didn't think was going to happen. But they went like 16-1 and Chad and I, we would talk because I would say, man, I like this kid, for Cincinnati, be like, Daniel Skilling or Leon Bott. We would talk, and Chad would always go like, I'm already on it type of thing. And it's weird to say, Chad, because AAU is so messed up so often. There's just so many.
But it can be so good.
Yeah, and for Cade's team, they just had all the pieces. They didn't pass the eye test, but they were just super skilled, and they could move the ball, and they were positionless on defense because they were a bunch of 6'6" kids that could switch ball screens, and all those all those types of things. I realized wow, they're going to be hard to beat. They could rebound their misses, and then they just like Cincinnati, you get confidence in working through moments. It was super cool. I'm going to miss that. Yeah. We went Georgia, we went Atlanta, Dallas, and Indy 3 straight weeks, starting on Wednesday to Sunday, always thinking like, man, am I going to get through this without getting fired from my job? And yeah, super fun.
All right.
Well, Greg, you've been a hell of a guest for us. We definitely appreciate all the openness, the candidness, the just humility, all of it. I mean, it's really cool to see, Alec go from where he came in and to where he's at now, and to have a parent kind of give us the backstory of all of that. It's something new for us. We've never done a parent before, and thank you for being the first of that for us. Selfishly, I hope that he gets drafted by Cincinnati, so you're back here tailgating again. Although I'm sure you selfishly hope that he gets drafted by Chicago, so he's there where you don't have to drive anywhere.
Two quick wraps. One is a comment, and the other's thanks. The comment is, Alec, I had a bunch of people ask me, was I annoyed that Alec burned his freshman year playing all 4 special teams? And that thought never crossed my mind ever. I was actually shocked that people would ask me that. It never crossed my mind because it was best for the team. And it was pretty fun watching him play special teams. But lo and behold, it's probably his calling card to solidify his floor at the next level because of the value of that. And for a lot of our guys. So what's interesting is when people think it's all about the glamour, if you do things that's best for the team, you can kind of unintentionally get rewarded by that. So that's the one thing that I just thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that he's making tackles at the Rose Bowl. And I was just always amazed that some of my people that I knew would ask me, was I annoyed that he burned his freshman year, playing special teams? Never thought about it. And then the second thing for you guys, I know you guys realize how special this is for the community. And the community is bigger than Cincinnati now. I mean, we've got it going crazy in Chicago. I mean, and you guys are a huge part of that. It's just amazing. Just community so important, and to be rallying around something. In this case, Cincinnati Athletics, and specifically football, because it's right in front of us right now, is super cool. And you guys add to that experience. And as for me as a fan, and so I'm super appreciative for all you guys, because the content is second to none. And I say that as a guy who listened to Carolina basketball podcasts. The content you guys produce is second to none, and I know it's never ending.
No, it's growing.
It's certainly
rapidly.
a labor of love that really makes fans like myself appreciative.
By the way, Alec didn't burn his redshirt year. He still has it to use. So if he wants to come back next year.
See you guys.
See you,
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Happy holidays.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
it.
too.
That was fun.
That was amazing.
That was
fun.
really fun.
Too often, like you said, Aaron, we get the side of, we interview past players and what was your experience here? And, getting the perspective of the family of the players, the tailgating and just, the camaraderie. That was fun.
Plus, he's an awesome dude. Awesome dude. His
I
wife
feel
yells at him all the time because he'll call me and be like, "Hey, can you give me a table for 10 at the Grail for after the game?" Or can you give me a table for 10 at Mio's for after the game? And I'm always like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll make a call." It's not a big deal.
Well,
But he embraced this thing big time, and great personality, great dude. He was, as Aaron knows, he dialed it down to about 2.
I was gonna say he was a little reserved. He was certainly a little reserved, and I'm not mad. It is what it is, but I just there's and especially after I wrote this huge dad piece this week, and it got a lot of great feedback and all of that, and then to be able to kind of do this thing with Greg and Alec and all of that just kind of brings it all full circle, and that was just really cool. So happy that we got to do that. So
that was fun.
say listening to a dad talk about that kind of thing, like from his perspective, where obviously his kids are all grown and are about to be, his youngest is about to be moving into the next level.
Right.
Princeton.
Yeah. Right. And then I got I think Ed's pipes are moaning.
I thought that was a flyover.
but well, and then this past weekend I've got obviously 3 kids, and I've got one who is now starting to play more competitive sports. And by no means do I look at my son and say he's going to get drafted in the NFL. Right. But it's fun to watch him do what he's doing at the Pop Warner level, and then this weekend I got to take him on my birthday down to his first Bengals game. And it was like one of they lost, and we can maybe transition this into speaking about Bengals later. I can bring up more about it then, but it was nice to see get that perspective from somebody and have him talk about it in the way he did without, kind of dodging around anything, just answering everything head on. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. So I know we talked a little bit about the Crosstown Shootout. I don't really want to dive too much more back into it, but there was another game tonight.
You don't want to talk about the Crosstown Shootout anymore?
I mean, we can still talk about it, but I think we need to talk about it in a way that we can relate it to what transpired tonight. So as we talk about criticisms or praise, if there's any from that game, I eventually want to get into talking about the game that happened tonight. But I was a little disappointed, and I know that the people – here's the thing. I brought it up last night, and I want to bring it up again tonight because I know that you guys are going to give me a little bit more than Chad and Brent give me because it's a little different here in this environment than it is in that environment. But people are talking about canceling the game.
That's ridiculous. You cancel the game when you know that you're never going to win it again. That's ridiculous. We still hold the record, or we're still
overall record.
Overall record. Thank you. We couldn't have expected. Like I said before Greg come on, I didn't expect a win, but I didn't expect to get blown out. But I think Wes is going to turn us around. Like we've talked about before, Wes has played in one of the biggest rivalries of all of college basketball.
Yes, and
he in the past with a former coach. We tried to give away Crosstown Shootouts because I feel like
the previous regime.
Yeah, previous regime. Sorry about that. Because I don't think he took the as serious as we take it.
Well, clearly not. When everything was on the board last year, and unfortunately the previous regime, somebody in that previous regime had a close family tie that the entire family were Xavier fans, and you had this situation where COVID happens and you lose the home game revenue. That's a big deal for that particular game. That's a big deal.
Huge deal.
And you offer up 4 solutions to try and figure it out and publicize them, the 4 solutions, but then you just settle. You just settle for, no, we're not changing this. And Xavier digs their heels in. I'm going to be honest. I think Xavier needs this game more than we need this game.
At this point, yes. But I think a lot of people are using that argument.
No, not at this point. In the past, the present, and in the future, they need this game more than we need this game. Because who's driving to Xavier to sell out Xavier? How many games is Xavier selling out right now? I don't actually know the answer to this.
I think ticket wise, they come close to every game only because what do they seat something like 9,500 in that place, and they have
10,707 or something like that. I saw that earlier today.
They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,500 or 7,500 season ticket holders, and then they have 1,000 seats that go to students that sell out immediately, and then there's only 1,000 left over. So they're really, they don't have to sell that many to sell out the game, right?
No, they don't. But I think what Aaron's argument about Xavier, it's a bigger game for Xavier than it is for Cincinnati. I think people are using that argument as a reason to cancel the Crosstown Shootout, and I don't think that it's relevant. Like we said, this is still a game that we look forward to every year. Now, I wish it'd be later in the season and not the second month of the season. That'd be great. Almost the first month. But this is still a game that we play, and I don't ever want to see it go away. I still, like I said, not expecting to win. I still got pissed off at people. I still think Zach Fremantle's a punk. He's the next JP McCarron. Who celebrates getting 2 technicals and ejected from a game? Who celebrates that? I don't. Well, I did once. But no, that's not something you celebrate and like start pumping the crowd up with. That's stupid.
I don't know. I mean, like D'Artagnan, the statue that got egged and cheesed. Apparently, that's a thing.
Which I believe they did themselves.
I don't know what that is.
But they apparently have the sword pointed at Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken, and they have something else pointed at something else. I saw that on the news. I didn't actually know that. But in any case, like you have a statue that you actually pointed the sword and or whatever. Like, how are you going to cancel this game? Like, you can't. I just think that there weren't heels dug in enough on the negotiation portion to just lose for a COVID year where there's a fucking pandemic going on. You can't have fans. Like, I think they should have dug their heels in a little bit more because at the end of the day, this city needs this game, in my opinion. And contrary to whatever anybody wanted to say after the game, yeah, Cincinnati lost. Cool. It's a game. Like we've lost a lot of games over the past. I think 25 is about the time span that Xavier fans like to only use. 25 years.
Also, congratulations to beating a team that was put together in 30 days.
30 days!
I mean, congratulations. I hope your Super Bowl win is just as great as Kansas City's.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, that was something that was brought up, as a thing, was that when you see this team, we talked about it on this show like 8 months ago, right? What was that, March? So 9 months ago, we talked about this.
Yeah.
There were 4 kids. There were 4 kids on this team. And
were those the only ones that hadn't entered the portal at that point?
Right. We had 4 kids.
One of those was Rob Banks.
We had 3 scholarship kids. And then we had Rob Banks and Sam Martin. So maybe 5. So maybe we could have had.
No, Rob Banks is a scholarship kid.
Yeah.
He wasn't at that point. He wasn't
yet.
No,
he was.
He wasn't yet.
He was because
he was promised one. He was promised one, but hadn't been put on scholarship.
Okay,
yet.
All right, I got you.
That's beside the point. The point is the number of kids that were on the team, and we were looking at not having a coach. And then we get a coach, and like you said, over a 30-day period of time here, he puts together a pretty good squad of kids from the transfer portal, from everywhere that he could. He brings some
a
of
couple
the kids
back.
And I guess that's going to the transfer portal because technically they were in the transfer portal. So he brings all these kids in. We discussed it at the beginning of this season when Chad came on. It was probably one of the first times that Chad came on. We discussed how Wes Miller was starting at basketball 101 with this group.
Yeah.
Right? This is a group of kids that hadn't played together, hadn't had time. The kids over at Xavier have played together forever. Paul Scruggs has been there since Gillen. So, and that's a joke from Chad last week. But that's what you've got here. You still got a group that is working to find out who they are. Can we be disappointed that they got beat that bad? Sure. Would it be that bad maybe at the end of January? I don't know. Maybe. Is it going to be that bad in the future? Probably not.
No.
Hopefully it flips the other way. And I have more confidence in the fact that it's going to flip the other way sooner rather than later than I do that the game needs to be canceled and written off into oblivion.
Did we want to cancel the OSU game right after, in Fickle's first or second year, and we lost in that? Like, no, we didn't want to cancel it. We wanted to keep going, and it'll get better. It'll get better. I also have a lot of questions about that game. Like, right away we were called for flopping in like the first 5 minutes. I swear, Nunji every time, or whoever it was that kept
It was
taking-
Nunji. It was 1,000% Nunji.
He
hit
flopped every single time.
He hit the floor every offensive possession.
Every offensive possession, that 3-pointer where he got the, obviously got the free throw. That was a flop. But whatever, I don't like
that free throw. That was a flop. That one free throw.
I'm sorry, the 3-pointer where he got the 4.
Oh, the 4-point
play. Yeah.
And while you're talking about getting sent to the free throw line, which means that there were fouls called, and referees are those who call fouls. Our good friend Aaron got called out for saying he didn't think that maybe there should be an age limit on referees.
Yeah, Barstool Aaron.
That's fine. I mean, what are we doing running out 60, 70-year-olds out there? It's silly. It's silly.
I know some witty 67-year-olds who could probably still do it.
Witty has nothing to do with being able to run the floor and call fouls.
That is fair.
Anyway. All right, so moving on to the game that was tonight. UC had a bounce-back opportunity against FAMU, the Rattlers of FAMU.
A get-right game, maybe?
This is, we can call it get-right game.
I mean, how do you call it anything but?
We have a couple get-right games coming up.
We do, until we hit Houston.
Who did not look pretty this weekend.
Well, hopefully when they come here, they don't break chairs and throw garbage cans everywhere.
Hey, but shout out to the player who picked it up.
How does that work, Chad, when you have a team who destroys property like that when they're in the arena? Like, do they send them a bill?
We can ask we can ask what's the coach's name?
You can ask Xavier. They did it to Butler.
Yeah, didn't they break a water fountain or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, tore it off the wall.
So you can ask them.
I'll tweet them.
So, Chad, I was at the game tonight. I was watching the game. Good to see AJ McGinnis back. I know last night we were talking about you have 3 guards. Well, tonight you had 4.
Yep.
Nice problem to have.
Boy, he lets it fly, doesn't he?
He's not afraid to shoot the ball. And anybody who's talked to AJ McGinnis for 3 seconds should
Confidence is not a problem.
Should not be surprised by that.
Confidence is never a problem with AJ McGinnis. It's one of the he could play cornerback. He's one of those that snap and clear. He could miss 4 in a row and he still thinks the next one absolutely is going in. So he's going to let it loose.
I don't hate that because I feel like that's the difference between him and Trevor Moore.
Wow, there's a lot of differences between him and Trevor Moore, but
athleticism being one of them. So what were your takeaways tonight as you were watching the game, Chad?
Just
initially,
I thought in the second half they finally started to look like they were finding a rhythm again. They were getting back to what we saw at the beginning of the year. They got to get better on the defensive glass.
Yeah, that was a problem. And they were trying to get the ball to Odie, even offensively. I feel like the bigs are still struggling to find their role in both the offense and the defense. Just anytime they're on the floor, the 5 spot has been kind of the Achilles heel of this team at this point.
Well, I mean, besides Vic, none of them are really guys you can just throw it to and say, go get me a bucket.
Well, Ado was struggling to even catch the ball while he was down low.
He had a couple passes, though, that put him in a bad spot where he had to go off his feet, get it, and then when you land, you instinctively the ball comes down. It's they're not a good entry pass team either. So you've got bigs that aren't natural back to the basket scorers and guards that aren't great at throwing it into the bigs who aren't natural back to the basket scorers. That is a double problem.
That's nothing like being hit by the double whammy.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not a great combo for feeding the post. But I mean, I don't know. I thought the effort was definitely. It felt like they found a little bit of their mojo. Now, Florida A&M is bad. So
there's no way around it.
No,
Yeah,
listen to KJ. They're a good team.
Florida A&M is bad. So that is what it is. But you know what you have to do against the bad teams?
Win.
Well, you got to, especially when you're
Are you talking about style points now, Chad?
No, I'm talking about internally when you're struggling, when you're on the struggle bus, like this team has been on the struggle bus. You got to get right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you play that game and it's within like 12 to 15 points the entire second half, you're not getting right. And you needed to see what we saw in that second half where they took 12 and next thing you know it's 25. Right? Like that you needed to see that. You needed to see Jeremiah Davenport start to get his confidence back.
7 of 15 is a good night from the field.
Well, what was he from 2? Like that's I think what was most important.
From 2, he would have been 5 of 7.
Yeah. He's really struggled from 2. Now, he can do some things against a Florida A&M that he can't do against a Xavier. So you would expect that. But he had that little like baseline where he caught it and kind of gave him a jab step and then hit the baseline jumper.
Yeah.
Like those are things that are going to be able to be available for him that make him more than just a spot up 3-point shooter. So I think ultimately, as you get into American Athletic Conference play, him finding that rhythm of I can be more than just a guy that either A, catches and shoots, or B, straight line drives. That's a big plus because when he doesn't have those other things going, he forces trying to make something happen because he knows we all know this is not a secret to anyone. This is a team that struggles offensively, right? It's not a great offensive team. So when he doesn't feel that pressure to have to just like rapid fire, like when he catches from 3, like I got to get a shot up to see if I can help us. I think that makes the offense a little bit more calm, a little more balanced. And we were back to seeing the overall across the roster balance. And I talked about this last night on the bounce. Somebody asked in the mailbag, who is a guy you can see coming on over the second half of the season. I thought Jared Hensley is a name that stood out to me, and we saw him get 11 minutes tonight, plus minus was 15. He scored 4 points, got an offensive rebound, had an assist. Like if he can continue to be a guy that you feel more and more comfortable with spelling John Newman, then guess what? You don't have to go small when you spell John Newman.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can have a guy that's 6'8" that can be out there and be effective for you. So I was good to see. I thought he played pretty well against Xavier, all things considered.
Well, and Hensley's a guy that Wes Miller's brought up numerous times in his post game. Like, I'm looking to get him more minutes. He's a guy that I need to get more minutes for. Like, and it's nice to see that it appears that he's starting to do that. The other thing I like to see from tonight is 14 of 17 from the line.
Whew.
That's 82. That's an 82% clip there. I think is what Ed's showing it there on the thing. But
Odie's stroke from the free throw line looks impressive all of a sudden.
Well,
he struggled early in the year. Now he's stepping up there with some confidence.
Hopefully that's something. Hopefully that's something that a lot of these guys are going to start doing because that obviously that's something that's been a killer here in Cincinnati that has gone across coaching staffs. So it's not like it's is that a word? Unexplainable.
Inexplicable. I'm glad we all worked through that together.
We did, but
unexplainable is a word.
It's
unexplainable is a word. Inexplicable was the word he was looking for.
That's what I was looking for. But when you look at free throws, it doesn't matter how bad the other team is or how good they are because they're free throws. So you should make them. And
Chef, I don't need that.
That's something that you when you struggle through it. I'm just saying, like, you you look at some of this other stuff and people are gonna be like, well, Florida A&M is just terrible. They're just awful. Well, free throws, it doesn't matter if they're terrible or if it's the best team in the country, because it's just a free throw. So make them. And it's nice to see that they went back to an 82.4% clip at that.
Now, Chad, there was a spot in the second half where it appeared, at least from where I was all the way up in the corner, where Coach was yelling at.
Yes.
I mean, he lost his entire mind, and it appeared that he was yelling at Vic, and there was about 3 or so, maybe as many as 5 minutes where the team just seemed lackadaisical at best. And I assume that's what he was losing his mind on. But what was your takeaway from that moment?
He talked about a post game. He was upset with their getting back in transition D, which Vic was the head of the snake at the particular time. He called timeout and was out in the middle of the floor doing his best Mick Cronin. But it was effort in relation to getting back and stopping transition after, there were a couple times where, Cincinnati made a basket and Florida A&M just ran right back down and got a clean look up, immediately after. So he was not happy with that.
So the follow-up to that would be, he left Vic in. Did that surprise you from things that we had seen with previous regimes?
Well, if I was holding it to the standard of previous regimes, yes. But that's not really who Wes is. Wes is more, I'm going to scream at you, but I'm also going to give you the opportunity to correct what I was screaming at you about.
That's interesting to me. Like, that's very interesting to me, because
it's not a very coachy thing to do.
Well, by the way, Florida had gone on a 6-0 run right before.
Yeah.
He called that timeout and yelled.
Just interesting to me to leave Vic in after you just bit his head off, where you clearly weren't drawing up a play in that timeout. You were literally just screaming at the players.
So Vic's going to make a video about it.
I love that video.
But the video is good.
But I don't know. It was very interesting to me as a fan, as somebody who follows this program, as somebody in the media, to see you lose your mind on a guy and then you left him in for the chance to prove you right. We're not used to that here.
No, but I would get used to it, because that's his style. That's kind of who his philosophy, that's who he is as a coach. He's the type that he will lose his shit, but he's not going to. Okay. I guess this just kind of came to me as a great way to describe Wes. He'll lose his shit, but he won't lose his mind.
Okay.
Does that make I think that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
he'll flail wildly and call a timeout and scream at you, but then he walks over to the huddle and he's like, all right, now get your ass back in transition, or I am going to take you out. Like, fix it.
Now, is that something that Roy would do? Is that something that obviously
I don't watch enough North Carolina to really know.
I don't either.
But you have to remember, he's had 10 years on his own to kind of develop this. I think we forget that at times because he's so young and he looks so young. This guy was a head coach for 10 years. So a lot of what he does is Wes.
Calculated.
This isn't, but it's calculated, of course, but it's not like he's not going through the trial and error process. He's already had the trial and error process of a decade. And I think that's really rare, obviously, for a guy that's 38 years old to have 10 years of head coaching experience at the Division I level under his belt. So,
and pretty successful experience too. We're not talking about a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, or is still, like you said, figuring things out.
Right.
Do you think? Sorry, I'm going back to the Crosstown Shootout, because there's at one point they showed.
Do we have? Come on, Ed.
I know. There was one point they showed.
I don't fucking talk about that anymore, man.
There was one point that showed Travis Steele sitting there, and he had this big old smile on his face. Do you think that was Travis Steele's Super Bowl, because he beat the guy who was right in front of him for the top coaches under 40 or whatever it is?
I think it's his Super Bowl, because that's what that fan base prioritizes. That's what they want in life, is to beat Cincinnati. Like
He's not walking into that stupid bar in Norwood dropping
$1,000
$3,000 this
without a
year
mask on.
for any other game.
right.
For the
I just
record,
can't wait till we go back. That game is played again next year. We slap them.
Memphis beat Alabama 92-78.
Ooh,
Somebody woke up Penny. Larry Brown all of a sudden like showed up on staff this week.
did they bring Mike Miller back?
I don't know. I just want to go back to that moment. Like I'm so not used to seeing a coach do that for Cincinnati, any Cincinnati team.
Yeah.
Is that something Huggins would do?
Oh no.
Mick sure as shit would not. Like, you'd be on the bench the rest of the game if he was that mad.
We talked to Huggins players. Huggins would have sent him back to the locker room and told him to get on the bus.
Right. We'll meet you there.
Yeah, hey, you go ahead, get a head start. We'll be there soon.
Get the fuck out.
Absolutely wild to me to see that. So, anyway, there's 2 more get right games, I believe, before we have the test with Houston. I still don't think we're there with Houston, but we'll see what the next couple games bring out. I was encouraged by McGinnis being back. He was hitting some shots, and Newman was doing some things. He was all over the place. So I don't know. I mean, Coach was definitely playing with the rotations, which we talked about last night on the BBP. Is he going to mess with some rotations? Well, clearly getting McGinnis back changes everything. I'm curious if McGinnis was getting Madsen minutes or if those are the minutes that McGinnis has earned. Because that injury was not something that wasn't something we saw coming.
No.
Well, Wes said afterwards that it's something he had been dealing with, which could explain why he's been in a bit of a funk lately. It's from what Wes said post game, it's a hip injury, which trying to play basketball with a bad hip, not great. Yeah, it's not great. Yeah. It's not a great way to play.
It's kind of an important
sport for that matter.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or
outside of thumb wrestling, I think your hip is kind of
even arm wrestling, you kind of need the leverage of right? Like you're standing up.
You got to go all the way down to thumb wrestling for it to be not a
required. You could probably paper rock sit. You could Rochambeau with a bad hip.
I don't know. You go down pretty hard.
Rock, paper, scissors, Spock.
Well, Cincinnati has a huge game on Saturday with the Texas Southern Tigers, who are 2-7.
With a blowout of Florida.
Texas.
Huh?
They beat the crap out of Florida, didn't they?
Did they?
Look it up, Ed.
I'm on it. I'm already looking. Yes, 69-54. They did beat Florida.
Not
close.
Florida. They whooped Florida.
Well,
but Texas Southern is one of those SWAC teams that literally leaves campus at the start of November and comes back at New Year's.
We also beat Illinois handily, kept up with Arkansas, and got our ass handed to us by unranked Xavier.
Right. But it's one of they do 13 bye games.
I just wanted to make sure Facebook user was still listening.
Egg.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that there was a.
I would block them, but I know them.
It's Ed's brother. It's gross.
Ugh.
If I had access, I'd block him.
Bill, just
Ed. No, hold on. Actually, I wouldn't because Ed, this is what you get for last night.
Last night was great.
I'm rubbing your nose in it right now.
I thought I had some legitimate questions last night.
You got yourself a troll, Ed. Congratulations.
It's your brother.
We've made it.
All right, so the Bengals.
Oh, I mean,
I almost forgot we had to talk about them.
I have a hot take.
Go for it.
Is this our take from last night, Chad?
Yes.
Okay.
Overtime. Bengals driving. They run twice. Everybody loses their fucking mind.
Yeah.
do people not realize that it was 3rd and 3?
When Joe
3rd and 3
when Joe got sacked by Bosa.
when Joe got sacked. How do you get what happened with San Francisco on 3rd and 5? Jimmy G took one step, put his foot in the ground, hit a slant to
Kittle.
Move the chains, right? Do I love that they ran twice? No. Would I have liked for them to put the ball in Burrow's hands? Yes. But
Fair.
The runs were called because there was a light box. So you're playing 5-on-5, essentially. Mixon gets 4, Mixon gets 3. It's 3rd and 3. That's like if it went Mixon for 1, Mixon for 2, it's 3rd and 7. I would completely understand the outrage.
Yeah.
Completely understand the outrage. But you got to 3rd and 3, and you didn't, like, Joe didn't have a play dialed up in his head to get this first down. Why was he standing in the pocket for so long? Like, why was he there long enough to take a sack?
There was
Get the first down, move the chains, and go get the fucking touchdown.
Yeah, on that play, there was I've seen it a couple times. It's been shared on
The 3rd and 3.
Yeah, and it's been shared on Twitter with the all 22 look, which I guess you get if you have like the NFL Network. You can go back and watch like the all 22.
Or if you have season tickets, you get access to the all 22.
Okay,
Oh, really?
so that's what that explains why the people that shared it. But then there are people that are smarter than me, and I'm attempting to learn more about football and coverages and these kinds of things and whatnot.
Good.
But there are folks that know more than me that were able to break it down with the fact that literally there was nowhere to put the ball unless he put his foot in the ground and
One step.
it threw one in because I believe it was Higgins had gotten inside of his guy right off the line, but then
Like
was
George
covered.
Kittle did.
But then was covered over the top by a safety. So there was that brief window of he could have hit him there.
Well, because if you're
But then it was
playing
gone-
off
and then
the
after
ball,
that, it was all gone after that.
Yeah.
if you're playing off the receiver though, and you instead of doing your normal 5-step, 3-step, 7-step drop, whatever the case may be, and instead you take a 1-step drop, a la Jimmy G, who is not a better quarterback than Joe Burrow, let's be all the way honest. But to have the wherewithal to do that and to hit the guy who just crossed your line of scrimmage in that 1 step, you got to be able to make that call in your head. Like that's, I don't want to put it on Joe that they should practice some quick plays like that though.
Well, they do. Like I think that Jeff's point is they did a good job defending whatever play it was they had drawn up.
Sure.
Which I'm sure that's very likely. But you got the 3rd and 3, like what? So everybody would have been okay with first down, outside's covered. Joe drops it down to Uzama for 7. Second down, incompletion, 3rd and 3. Now everybody's fine.
Right.
Like
That makes sense.
I just have this issue with like jumping the gun on like this is how I wanted it to happen while ignoring the results of 3rd and 3 is really good.
Yeah.
In football. I'll take 3rd and 3 99 times out of 100.
So I guess the question I have for you though, as far as the coaching calls and things of that, when you have a 4th down, you line up your offense to go for it on 4th down. Are you calling a timeout? Because I mean,
It
and I don't,
depends. Like, are you? Did you do it to try to draw them off sides? Did you, like, what
or
was
you
the
saw a
intention?
coverage you didn't like, or
Right.
whatever the case may be?
Like, we don't know that.
But I feel like that happened a couple times in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
It
That
happened. It happened at the
I know it
very
happened
beginning of the game,
in the
early, and then after that, there was they didn't send the offense back out
on a 4th down that you
and
should
call-
have
and call
potentially gone
timeout.
for.
Yeah, there wasn't any of that. So this is the first Bengals game I've been to in several years.
How awesome was it with your son?
Oh, it was incredible. So this year he's really become like an avid. Well,
How old is he?
Last year he's 8.
Okay.
So this year, like he started watching sports and stuff with me last year a little bit, kind of in the room, and then he played football this past fall and has like fallen head over heels in love with football. And all right, let's do it.
Let's go.
And he had been asking to go to a game. It's a little cost prohibitive. He's also like playing basketball now, and they play like a couple games a weekend, whatever. So he missed a basketball game to go to this. It was supposed to be a 1:00 game. I won tickets. So it was supposed to be a 1:00 game. We were going to be able to go to the game, leave, make it to his basketball game. It got bumped to 4:25.
Were these the Bud Light tickets finally?
Yeah, the Bud Light Stimmy ticks. They finally came in the very top row of section 311. So we had our backs. You can't go any higher. Obviously, we could have moved down. I asked him if he wanted to move down. He said, no, I can see everything from here. I said, all right, that's great. Like the video boards are fantastic down at the stadium. And then where our seats were, we were literally at the top of the stairs.
Video board should
So,
be
like,
fantastic. They just replaced one.
I know. So you go to the top of the stairs. There were no chairs in front of us, so he didn't have to worry about anybody standing up in front of him.
Thanks, Hamilton County.
So he got his food when we got there. I realized like where we were at, I was like, all right, we're probably not going to get up and leave our seats at any point to walk, because it'll take us an hour to get down and then come back. But he was having a blast, like watching it. He thought it was great. There was a guy that was in a row in front of us that was a Bengals fan with his buddy who was a San Francisco fan. So there was some cool banter back and forth that he got to experience. Some of that was fun. There was no like
without being inappropriate.
Yeah, and there was nobody around us that was like outrageously drunk, which is like what I was used to going when I had season tickets. Like people around us being like out of control. So there was none of that going on. I saw a lot more families there than I feel like were there whenever I used to go.
We obviously never went to a game together.
Maybe I wasn't like looking out for it then. I don't know, like whatever. I was younger. So that was all fun. And then he gets real bummed out whenever if the Bearcats are down in something, or the Reds are down, or the Bengals go down. Like he gets super bummed. He doesn't like watching them lose. He's like, wow, this sucks. And so then they started coming back, and so he's like, this is going to be the greatest win ever, Dad. Like, this is going to be awesome. Look at him. This is so awesome. And then they moved down for that field goal at the end, and he's like, they're gonna win, aren't they, Dad? I was like, I don't know, man. It's a field goal. It's kind of long. They might miss it. Yeah, they miss it. And then he's like, Dad, I got to pee. He's like, do we have time before overtime? Because I got to go bad. And I'm like, all right. So he jumped on my shoulders. We ran all the way down the steps, like all 35 rows to the bottom, go to the bathroom. We got the bathroom, and there was a lot of drunk cussing going on there because everybody's trying to go to the bathroom before overtime started. And we get back, race all the way up the stairs. As we're getting back to our seats, they're kicking off for overtime. And I look at him, and it's cold, and he's running, and so his lungs, I know, are on fire. He's like hacking. He's like, Dad, I might throw up. And I'm like, drink this Mountain Dew. Like, have it, get something down.
Your seat was about to smell like the bubble today.
Oh man. So he did that. They ended up, when they drove down, kicked the field goal, and when they ended up losing, he was a little bit bummed out, but we got home, and he stayed up until midnight because he had drank Mountain Dew. So we were sitting in the living room.
Jeff.
Hey, we were sitting in the living room. But we were sitting in the living room, and everybody else in the house obviously is asleep. And I think there might have been still a game going on or something on the TV, and he was over on his iPad watching football on it. And he just stopped, and he looked up, and he's like, I had a whole lot of fun tonight, Dad. Like, thanks for taking me. And that made it.
That's the moment.
That made it worth it all. He's like, even though they lost, he was like, it was a lot of fun to go. And he was like, you think we could go again before the season's over? I don't know. Maybe we'll see if we can swing it. Right.
Damn it.
But
so hopefully she doesn't listen to this. Kelsey doesn't know she's going to the Cotton Bowl.
Oh.
What?
So she's just now gotten into being a big UC fan. Like,
Well,
finally.
she has to go because
Wait a
if
minute.
she doesn't go, they're going to lose.
Is she going is she going with your dad?
She's going with we're taking her. We just haven't told her, so we're going to give it to her for Christmas.
Oh,
So
that's
she
awesome.
thinks that like she's not going, and she's mad about it. She's like big mad about it.
I'm so
Anytime
happy.
it comes up, she's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, that's the best.
So yeah, we're gonna surprise her on Christmas with tickets to the Cotton Bowl and tell her that she gets to go on the road trip with us.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
She also, I pulled off. I'm going to be dad of the year for this one. So she's playing volleyball now, right?
Oh, I know this story.
And she's really gotten into it. And her and her friend were like sitting on the couch Saturday night while I was watching the shootout. They were watching the NCAA volleyball tournament. And she knows that Jordan Thompson is like UC volleyball Olympian, whole 9 yards. So I know Blake, Jordan's husband, that was an offensive lineman, and Blake just happens to walk in today. And I'm like, bro, the only thing my daughter really wants is to like meet your wife. He's like, oh, well, shit, she's back in town for the week or a couple weeks, rehabbing an ankle injury and all. Like, she's home. Let's go get lunch.
Oh, where are you going to get lunch, Chad?
Bread bar, of course.
Weird.
Of course.
You mean that awesome chicken parm sandwich that you've tweeted out for the world to salivate over?
Yeah. Well, I asked Blake, and Blake's a big dude. He's a former offensive lineman. I'm like, you ever had bread bar? He's like, no. I'm like, look at this chicken parm. He's like, we're going to bread bar.
Well, I mentioned when you're standing there and I mentioned, oh, the chicken sandwich. He was like, oh, a chicken sandwich. And you're like, no, bro.
Hey, did somebody say chicken parm?
Chicken parm. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. What? And then he sees the picture and he's like, Jesus.
So yeah, she's going to get to meet Jordan Thompson next week for lunch. So
That's cool.
She's
she doesn't
finally
know
at that
that part
age
yet
where
either,
she's starting to realize like dad knows everybody in town. So she's like really working me hard on maximizing that. Like she's dropping like, do you know this person? Can we do like I heard this is going on. Can you get me in there? I'm like, easy, kid. Like, relax.
Sounds like the same thing I do.
Yeah, it is. It's the exact same thing my oldest son does.
Easy, kid.
Come on.
We could talk about that instead of the Bengals. Aaron got to go to a bowl practice in the bubble today.
I did.
He
How'd it smell?
picture.
So let's talk about practice, Chad. Evan Prater looked like he was literally playing for his the starting job today.
He was phenomenal today. Like I've been watching Evan for 2 years, and he's had some really good practices. That's the best practice I've ever seen Evan Prater have. Like
Denbrock refused to give me that it was his best practice when I talked to him.
Right, because he knew it was.
That's good to hear.
He looked at you like I'm not saying that.
We weren't looking. No, that's the thing. We were standing next to each other, kind of both arms crossed. He wasn't looking at me. I wasn't looking at him, but we were having the conversation. He wasn't looking at me when he said it.
Right. I will
That's really good to
cry
hear.
when Mike Denbrock leaves Cincinnati. That's my favorite human in the UC athletic department. I know that's not popular, but that guy is Aaron got a taste of it today. He is hilarious.
Well, the thing about Denbrock leaving, in all fairness, I would assume would mean as long as everyone else stays the same. If he leaves for a head coach job, as you've alluded to that he wants, would mean that I would think that our quarterbacks coach would probably move into that offensive coordinator role.
I'm talking exclusively selfishly here.
I understand.
Right.
Because Mike Denbrock is pure entertainment for me.
For everyone who comes into contact with him.
Right. The guy, he's got a dry, a dry wit that is otherworldly. Like I enjoy Mike Denbrock and the opportunity I get to chat with him so much. Which reminds me, tomorrow on Bearcat Journal, as part of our coverage for signing day, we will have exclusive interviews with Mike Denbrock and Mike Tressel breaking down and detailing each and every recruit that's signed with Cincinnati on signing day. That's something that we do every year. I love it. It's one of my favorite things we do every year because I'm telling you right now, there's not another site in the country that gets that. Like, you get the coaches press conference, the head coaches press conference, but getting what the coordinators see and what they think of each of these kids is a big deal. So I love doing that every year. I think because of we're trying to build the YouTube channel, I think I'm going to do them on video.
That's good.
And then put them on the YouTube channel tomorrow.
We can play it as we do like the nightcap or some whatever.
Yeah, we can play snippets or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be solid.
But I'm really excited about that.
Is that a 50% off sale thing still going on?
We still have 50% off an annual subscription to Bearcat Journal, and if you're already subscribed as a monthly member to Bearcat Journal, you can upgrade to an annual subscription and also get the 50% off. So it's a pretty big one. We don't do that often where we let
upgrade. And I tricked you there, didn't I, Ed?
Yeah. Like, what happened to my audio?
I switched microphones. Oh, I'll show you, Ed. You want to see it? Let me show you.
It's good, Mike.
Is it the nano or the full size?
The blue.
All right, then.
Blue.
I asked for one of this for Christmas.
It's
on the list.
You got to get, from what I've heard from my research, you got to get the windscreen with it.
Yep, that's big.
I ordered the windscreen. That doesn't work for me, Ed. Aaron and I had this discussion last night.
A pop filter?
The pop filter doesn't work for me. The pop filter cannot contain me.
Oh, you mean the foam thing?
Yeah, the foam.
Yeah.
And this is what we were talking about on the BCJ boards today when we talk about playing with new toys. Last night, Chad did not have this mic, and I apologize to everyone when Chad was topping out. That was what I thought was the best audio that we had available between the two options we had available. It was real bad. That's all.
Aaron sends me a text during the show, and he goes, "Chad's mic sounds horrible." I was like, "He needs to return the blue. If that's the blue, he needs to return it."
No, it hadn't come yet. But I was using the webcam mic.
Oh,
that'll do it.
So apparently it sounds great. It's designed for like Zoom meetings, so it sounds great in the meeting, but it does not sound great when being broadcast to the public. And I have a modulation problem. When I used to do high school football games, they had to actually buy like a $500 condenser to limit because my voice is just not microphone friendly.
Unique New York.
It's not microphone friendly at all. I blow out microphones like you wouldn't believe.
Right now, bow now.
All right, Ed, you got 90 seconds? Or I'm sorry,
I've had
60 seconds.
But I've drank this whole thing, so this is going to be an issue. This is going to be
can't wait for.
Wait a minute. Did you just try to give him 90 seconds?
If you could give me 90 seconds, that would be great.
I mean, it's like once if the tag was on the rack, so he said 90 seconds.
We'll see where you're at.
To give him 90 seconds.
We'll see where you're at with 60 seconds. Chad. You sound like the people who are like, "Oh, there's no tag, it's free." Blah.
Well, no, but you advertised 90 seconds. Like you did that. Ed didn't do that.
I just need to get out of here so I can get more beer. I'm 6 deep and I'm looking for more. I didn't drink any at the game.
This was a 32-ouncer.
All right. Ed, you ready?
Is it bourbon?
Yeah.
Your time starts.
We'll talk about it in a minute.
Your time starts now.
All right, this week was AEW Rampage. I already messed up. By the way, rumor has it Kevin Owens is coming to AEW. That's a win. If you know why, you know why. Anyways, so my dudes Sting and Darby Allin were in backstage doing an interview, and some group called FTR, who had just had a 45-minute match, attacked them. They were a bunch of jabronis. They threw a small guy, Darby Allin, into a garage door, which I thought was pretty weak of them. And then Dave Ramsey kicked a guy in the nuts, or kicked Sting in the nuts, which I thought was weird as well. And then Adam Cole and Wheeler Ulta fought after that. Adam Cole's still a bum. Both these guys are are out here posing, or no, they're out here with posses like DX and NOD, Nation of Domination. Newsflash, they're not them. Who's the guy with the face mask looking like a vlogger out here? Adam Cole really does think he's Shawn Michaels or something. Why is Adam Cole staring down Zach Morris? I mean, Orange Cassidy, if you get that one, you get that one. Adam Cole won, but still Pat McAfee won. And why are we still kicking dudes in the nuts? Like it's 2021. We should stop kicking dudes in the nuts. It's not nice. Also rumors. So apparently there's going to be a feud. Apparently the feud that I talked about a couple weeks ago, MJF versus CM Punk, that's no longer going to be a feud. From what I'm reading is MJF has been talking about Adam Cole's girlfriend, Britt Baker, a lot, and Adam Cole doesn't like it. So will that be the next feud? I don't know. I hate them both.
And time.
That's it. Ed, I have a question.
I gave him 90.
Nice. Well, did you go from writing this out to typing it out, Ed?
I did.
And then you said that they were posing instead of had posses. You still said that?
I was trying to read it too fast. Also, I've drank about 32 ounces of beer tonight, craft beer. So
I actually have questions.
Okay, what's your question?
Why
I got
do you have
answers.
questions.
I mean, is Adam Cole the guy who does the like commentary?
No, that's a different guy, and we accidentally said
Michael Cole.
Michael Cole. And I accidentally
Mm-hmm.
said the wrong guy to Sean Casey back when we interviewed him. So that's on me.
There was another question I had, but I can't remember because I've also drank. So,
Is it the fact that Ed's going to be on AEW?
I can't wait.
I have a figurine of him over here on my wall because it's the only time I'll get a figurine or an action figure of myself.
It's true.
All right. Well, unless you guys have anything else.
Do you have any other questions for me about AEW?
I did. I
No.
lost it. It
No,
was
there's no more.
70
That's it.
seconds. It was 70 seconds after you ended. So
That's all over.
Okay.
do we have a bum of the week? Anybody?
Fremantle.
The referee that threw the flag for the Von Bell
Ooh, the taunting.
penalty, which I think is also. I think that you're muted, Chad. You're muted. You muted yourself.
You can't do it. Don't do it. Don't point your finger in somebody's face.
It
Yeah,
wasn't even.
He
but
pointed
it
a first
wasn't-
down.
There was
He
some
picked up
talk-
an incomplete pass, Ed.
There was some talk that it was like some good-natured ribbing going
Friendly
on
banter.
between the two of them, and then my issue is you call that, but then later on they like flex on Mixon and like chest bump him and you don't throw a flag for that.
So that's my other thing about the Crosstown Shootout. You got 4 guys on the ground in a scrum trying to get the ball, and then they call a timeout, and the Xavier guys come out going like throwing fists and stuff like this because they're all excited and everything. How is that legal? Like, how are they allowed to come off the bench? I know it's a timeout. Somebody told me online. I appreciate that, but that feels like coming off the bench for a fight.
You just answered your own
It feels
question.
like coming off the bench for a fight. It was a heated game. They were on the ground. You know, they're probably still kicking and hitting each other, and then they come off the. It's whatever.
Do you snort? Do you snort Adderall before you do your 60 seconds? What just happened?
Well, you didn't let me talk about it during the Crosstown Shootout stuff. So
Anyway.
I did not
Alright.
tweet about this all week because I wanted to talk about it on the show.
All right, we are at 2:08. It was a 2-hour podcast from Pardon the Punctuation. Thanks again to special guest Greg Pierce for joining Pardon the Punctuation.
That was
First
good
parent,
stuff, man.
first parent we had. I don't know that we won't run that back to have some other parents coming on, especially in the off season, because it's a different perspective, and I've had the opportunity to connect with some people. So
That's one thing people don't think about, and I've had people tell me this a lot. Like, because of the way that we do coverage, where we do practice reports and we do like detailed daily stuff, we have a massive community of like the football parents that are on Bearcat Journal. So like Aaron has gotten to see that. Like when I'm around the football parents,
Mike Sanders told me last week he wants to bring me to a Maije NFL game.
right?
That's crazy.
Mike Sanders is coming.
That's my dude.
He'll be on this podcast before it's all said and done.
100%. That's my dude.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. Oh man. Go ahead and end this thing.
You know who else has that tattooed across their neck?
We're not talking
Moore.
about neck tattoos anymore.
Who?
Did he have 100 tattooed on his like right above? Like I remember he had that.
Who?
Quadri Moore. Quad.
Oh,
Quad Squad?
Quad Squad had 100 tattooed across his neck.
And with that, that was another episode of Pardon the Punctuation. As always, I am your host, Aaron Smith. Thanks for Chad Brendel dropping in after the game. The self-proclaimed best producer in the city.
Aaron's coming for you, Ed. Aaron's coming for you.
He's decent.
And my partner in crime, play on words there, Jeffrey. Jeff Howell. We are out. We'll see you next week.
Ba-da-ba.